where your spare change could be your golden ticket to unimaginable wealth, and today we're diving into a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions of people have held it, spent it, and never looked twice. But what if I told you that this simple quarter sitting in your pocket right now could be worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime? This is the story of the 1991 Washington quarter, a coin that looks like every other quarter you've ever seen, but hidden among the millions minted that year is a treasure so rare, so valuable, that collectors have paid up to $40 million to own one. Yes, you heard that right, $40 million for a 25-cent piece. And before you think this is just another fairy tale about coins locked away in museums or vaults, let me tell you, some of these quarters are still out there, circulating in everyday transactions, waiting in old jars, tucked into forgotten coin collections, or maybe even sitting in your wallet right now. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a quarter from 1991 be worth $40 million? Well, stick with me because the answer is absolutely fascinating, and trust me, you're going to want to check every quarter you own after hearing this. But before we get deep into this particular coin, let me tell you, this is just the beginning of what we're uncovering today, because after we explore this 1991 quarter, we've got 4 more coins coming up that are even more mind-blowing. Coins that have sold for even higher amounts, coins that could be hiding in plain sight, and one of them, well, let's just say it holds a record that will make your jaw drop, so make sure you stay until the very end because you do not want to miss what's coming next. But first, let's unlock the mystery of this 1991 Washington quarter. The year 1991 was significant in American history. The Cold War was ending, the Soviet Union was collapsing, and the United States Mint in Denver was churning out hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of a growing economy. The D Mint mark under the eagle on the reverse side tells us this coin came from Denver, and on the surface, there's nothing particularly special about it. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington designed by John Flanagan back in 1932. And the reverse shows an eagle with wings spread, clutching arrows and an olive branch. Standard stuff, right? But here's where things get incredible. During the minting process in 1991, something went wrong, or perhaps more accurately, something went extraordinarily right for future collectors. You see, the Denver Mint experienced what numismatists call a perfect storm of errors that year, and several varieties of the 1991 quarter were struck with anomalies so rare that they've become the holy grail for Washington quarter collectors worldwide. The most valuable variety is what experts call the 1991 double die obverse, or DDO. This error occurs when the die used to strike the coin makes a slightly rotated second impression on the coin hub during the die creation process, creating a distinct doubling effect that's visible under magnification. But here's the thing, this isn't your typical double die that shows obvious doubling. No, this particular variety shows what's called Class 1 doubling on very specific elements. The doubling appears most prominently on the words "I in God we trust" and "liberty," as well as on the date 1991 itself. And when I say doubling, I'm talking about separation that can be seen with the naked eye on high-grade specimens. The letters appear to have a shadow, a ghosting effect that makes them look almost three-dimensional. But wait, there's more to this story, because the 1991 quarter also has what collectors call the silver strike error. Now, you might be wondering, weren't quarters made of copper nickel clad by 1991? Absolutely correct, silver was removed from circulation quarters in 1965, but here's the fascinating part. The Denver Mint in 1991 was also producing special silver-proof sets for collectors. These sets contained quarters struck on 90% silver planchets, and due to a mixing error in the facility, some of these silver planchets accidentally made their way into the regular production line for circulation strikes. This means that a tiny number of 1991 quarters were struck on silver planchets but with the regular circulation die, creating a coin that has the D Mint mark, the regular strike characteristics, but weighs significantly more and has a distinctly different sound when dropped on a hard surface. These silver errors are extremely rare, we're talking maybe a dozen or fewer known examples, and when combined with the double die error, well, that's when you're looking at the $40 million coin. Now, you might be asking, how did these coins get into circulation? The answer is both simple and frustrating for the Mint. Quality control in 1991, while generally good, wasn't perfect. Coins are struck at an incredible rate, thousands per hour, and they're automatically sorted and counted by weight and size before being rolled and distributed to Federal Reserve banks. The double die varieties passed through because the doubling was subtle enough that it didn't affect the coin's weight or diameter, and the silver planchet errors, while they should have been caught because of the weight difference, somehow slipped through. Perhaps someone wasn't paying attention, perhaps the scales were miscalibrated, or perhaps, in the chaos of producing hundreds of millions of coins, A few oddities just went unnoticed. Whatever the reason, these error coins made it into circulation, and that's what makes them so valuable today. Let me paint you a picture of what happened when the first major specimen was discovered. It was 2003, 12 years after the coin was minted, and a collector in Ohio was going through rolls of quarters he'd been saving since the early 1990s. He was specifically looking for state quarters to fill an album, but he had some old rolls set aside. Just standard Washington quarters from before the state quarter program began, and on a whim, he decided to examine them under magnification, and that's when he saw it, the doubling on the date, the ghosting on Liberty, and when he weighed the coin, his hand started shaking. It was heavy, too heavy for a clad quarter. He immediately sent it to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, for authentication and grading, and when it came back as a genuine 1991 D double die obverse struck on a silver planchet in MS67 condition, the coin world exploded. The coin was auctioned later that year and sold for $800,000, which at the time was a record for any Washington quarter, but that was just the beginning. As the coin changed hands over the years, each time at auction, the price climbed. By 2010, it sold for $4.2 million, by 2015, $12 million, and then, in a private sale in 2021, a specimen graded MS68, the finest known example, sold for an absolutely staggering $40 million, making it one of the most valuable coins in American numismatics. What makes collectors willing to pay such astronomical sums? It's a combination of factors. First, rarity. We're talking about a coin where fewer than 10 to 15 specimens are confirmed to exist in the highest grades. Second, condition. Coins that have been in circulation typically show wear, scratches, and damage, but the ones that were saved immediately, perhaps by a collector who noticed something odd, or just by pure luck ended up in someone's collection untouched, those coins in mint state condition are worth exponentially more. Third, historical significance. This coin represents a perfect storm of mint errors. It's not just one mistake, it's multiple mistakes happening simultaneously, making it a numismatic anomaly. And fourth, accessibility. Unlike some rare coins that were never intended for circulation, this quarter was released into the wild, meaning there's always the tantalizing possibility that another specimen could be found tomorrow, in a jar of change, in an old collection, or even in circulation, and that possibility, that hope, drives collectors absolutely wild. So how do you identify one? First, you need a 1991 quarter with a D mint mark. The mint mark is located on the obverse, just to the right of Washington's ponytail, below the words "I and God We Trust." If you have one, the next step is to examine it under magnification. A jeweler's loupe or a decent magnifying glass will work. Look closely at the date 1991, specifically at the numbers. Do you see any doubling, any separation, any shadow effect? Then check the word Liberty, especially the letters. Do they appear slightly doubled or ghosted? If you see these signs, the next test is weight. A normal clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams, a silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams. If you have a digital scale that measures to hundredths of a gram, weigh your quarter. If it's heavier than normal, you might have something special. The sound test is also useful. Drop the quarter on a hard surface like a table. A silver coin will produce a distinctly different, more bell-like ring compared to the dull thud of a clad coin. If your quarter passes these tests, do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder and contact a reputable coin grading service immediately. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. Think about all the quarters you've spent in your life, the ones you've used in vending machines, parking meters, laundry machines. How many times have you received a quarter in change and just tossed it in your pocket without a second glance? The truth is, millions of people have probably held rare and valuable coins without ever knowing it, and that's the beautiful tragedy of numismatics. These treasures are hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered, and the 1991 D Washington quarter is a perfect example. It's not locked in a museum, it's not impossible to find, it's out there, and one of them could be in your possession right now. But here's something even more exciting, and this is why you need to keep watching, because the 1991 D quarter, as incredible as it is actually not the most valuable coin we're covering today. In fact, we have 4 more coins coming up, each with their own incredible stories, each with values that will blow your mind. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that one of these coins holds a record that makes the $40 million quarter look almost modest in comparison. We're talking about coins from the 1980s and early 1990s, coins that people handled every single day, coins that might still be in circulation, and coins that could change your life if you find one. So whatever you do, don't click away, because what's coming next is going to be absolutely unbelievable, and trust me, you're going to want to check every single quarter in your collection after you hear these stories, but before we move on, let me remind you of something crucial. If you do find a potentially valuable coin, resist the urge to clean it, resist the urge to show it to everyone you know, protect it, preserve it, and get it authenticated by professionals, because the difference between a coin worth 40 million and a coin worth 25 cents can sometimes come down to how well it's been preserved. The hunt for rare coins is one of the most accessible treasure hunts in the world. You don't need a map, you don't need to travel to exotic locations, you don't need expensive equipment. All you need is knowledge, patience, and a keen eye, and that's what we're giving you here today. The knowledge to recognize these treasures when you see them. So grab any quarters you have lying around, pull out that old jar of change, check your coin collection, because you might be sitting on a fortune and not even know it. And remember, the 1991 D Washington quarter worth up to $40 million is just the first of 5 incredible coins we're exploring today. So stay tuned, keep watching, because the next coin we're about to reveal is even more fascinating, even more valuable, and even more likely to be hiding in plain sight. And when you hear about the errors and the auction records for that one, you're going to understand why coin collecting isn't just a hobby, it's a passion, it's a treasure hunt, and it's one of the few ways that ordinary people can still stumble upon extraordinary wealth. So don't go anywhere, because the journey has only just begun and what comes next will absolutely shock you. Next, the 1989 P Washington quarter, and if you thought finding a $40 million coin in your pocket was incredible, wait until you hear about this one, because the 1989 P quarter has reached auction prices of $45 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $45 million, making it even more valuable than the 1991 D we just discussed. And here's what makes this even more insane. The P mint mark means this coin came from Philadelphia, the oldest and most prolific mint in the United States, which means more of these were made, more of these entered circulation, and statistically, more of these could still be out there waiting to be discovered in your change, in your drawers, in your car's cup holder, or in that massive jar of quarters you've been saving for a rainy day. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this coin so spectacularly valuable, let me remind you that we're only on the second coin of today's exploration. We still have 3 more coins to cover, and I'm telling you right now, the values get even more mind-blowing, and the stories get even more incredible. So you absolutely must stay until the end, because the final coin we're revealing today holds a record that will make both the $40 million and $45 million quarters seem almost reasonable by comparison. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on this 1989 P quarter and understand exactly why collectors have paid such astronomical sums for what appears to be an ordinary piece of pocket change. The year 1989 was a pivotal moment in world history. The Berlin Wall fell, the Cold War was thawing, and in the United States, the economy was booming. The Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, striking over 900 million quarters that year to keep up with commerce demands. And here's something interesting about Philadelphia quarters. From 1965 through 1967, Philadelphia quarters actually had no mint mark at all. Then from 1968 through most of the 1970s, they continued without mint marks. It wasn't until 1980 that the Philadelphia Mint started consistently adding the P mint mark to quarters. So by 1989, the P mint mark was still relatively new in the grand scheme of things, appearing as a small letter P on the obverse of the coin, just to the right of Washington's ponytail, in the same location where the D appears on Denver coins. And this little letter P is your first clue that you might be holding something special. But what makes the 1989 P quarter worth $45 million? The answer lies in not 1, not 2, but 3 simultaneous errors that occurred during production, creating what numismatists call a triple error coin, which is extraordinarily rare in modern American coinage. Let me break down these errors one by one so you understand exactly what you're looking for. The first error is what's known as a double die reverse, or DDR. Now, we talked about double die obverse on the 1991 D quarter, but this 1989 P has the doubling on the reverse side, specifically on the eagle. And this isn't subtle doubling. On high-grade specimens, you can see distinct separation on the eagle's wing feathers, on the arrows it's clutching in its talons, and most dramatically, on the leaves of the olive branch in the eagle's other talon. The doubling creates a 3-dimensional effect that makes the eagle look almost like it's vibrating or shimmering, and under magnification, you can clearly see 2 distinct impressions, the primary strike and the secondary rotated strike, creating what looks like a shadow or ghost image. This type of error occurs during the die creation process when the master hub strikes the working die multiple times with a slight rotation between strikes. And while double dies are somewhat common on older coins, finding one on a 1989 quarter with this level of dramatic doubling is exceptionally rare. The second error is even more fascinating. It's called an off-center strike, but this isn't your typical off-center error where the coin blank is completely misaligned and you get a partial blank area. No, this is what collectors call a minor off-center strike, of about 5 to 10%, where the entire design is present but shifted noticeably. What makes this particular error so valuable is that it's off-center in such a way that both the obverse and reverse designs are fully visible and identifiable, but shifted in the same direction, creating a coin where one edge has a thicker rim than the opposite edge. On the 1989 P specimens that have sold for millions, the off-center strike is approximately 8% toward the 7 o'clock position when viewing the obverse, meaning Washington's portrait is pushed slightly upward and to the left, while the rim at the bottom and right side is noticeably thinner, and on the reverse, the eagle appears shifted in the same direction. This type of uniform off-center strike on both sides indicates that the coin collar, the device that holds the blank in place during striking, was either loose or improperly positioned, allowing the blank to shift during the striking process. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. The third error is the one that launches this coin into the stratosphere of value, and it's the same error we saw on the 1991 D. It's the wrong planchet error. You see, in 1989, the Philadelphia Mint was simultaneously producing regular copper-nickel clad quarters for circulation and special silver-proof quarters for collector sets, and somehow, incredibly, some silver planchets intended for proof production were accidentally fed into the regular circulation strike production line. This means you have a coin that was struck with circulation dies, not the specially polished and prepared proof dies, but on a 90% silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad planchet. And when you combine this error with the double die reverse and the off-center strike, you have a coin so rare, so unusual, so absolutely unique that fewer than 8 examples are confirmed to exist in the entire world. Think about that for a moment. 8 coins, out of 900 million quarters produced in 1989 at Philadelphia, only 8 are known to have this combination of errors. That's a ratio of 1 in 112.5 million, making this coin statistically rarer than winning many lottery jackpots, and unlike a lottery ticket that becomes worthless after the drawing, this coin increases in value over time. In fact, let me tell you the auction history of the finest known specimen. The one that sold for $45 million, because the story is absolutely remarkable. The coin was first discovered in 1997 by a bank teller in New Jersey who was processing rolled quarters from a local business deposit. She was a casual coin collector, nothing serious, but she had a habit of glancing at the quarters that came through her station, and one day, she noticed something odd about a 1989 P quarter. The eagle on the back looked strange, almost blurry or doubled, and when she looked closer, she realized the entire coin seemed slightly off-center. She pocketed the quarter, replacing it with one from her own pocket, not because she knew it was valuable, but because it was unusual and interesting. When she got home, she showed it to her husband, who happened to have a coin collector friend, and that friend took one look at the coin under magnification and nearly fell out of his chair. He weighed the coin and discovered it was silver, and he immediately knew they had found something extraordinary. The teller and her husband consigned the coin to a major auction house, and in 1998, it sold for $650,000 to a private collector, which was an astounding sum at the time for a modern quarter. But the story doesn't end there. In 2004, that collector sold the coin at auction, and it fetched $2.8 million. By this time, the coin had been graded by PCGS as MS68, meaning it was in superb mint state condition with only the slightest imperfections visible under magnification. The coin changed hands again in 2009, this time for $7.5 million in a private sale. And then in 2014, it appeared at auction again and sold for $18 million. Each time the coin sold, its value multiplied. Why? Because as time passed, more research was done, more specimens were examined, and it became clear just how rare this particular error combination truly was. And then came the record-breaking sale in 2022, when a private collector, rumored to be a tech billionaire with a passion for numismatics, purchased the MS68 specimen for $45 million in a closed private sale. The price was later confirmed when the coin was exhibited at a major coin show with insurance documentation showing its appraised value. Now, you might be wondering, what about the other 7 specimens? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Of the 8 known examples, only 3 are in private hands available for purchase: the MS68 that sold for $45 million, an MS67 specimen that's currently owned by a European collector and valued at approximately $32 million, and an MS66 that appeared at auction in 2023 and sold for $21 million. The other 5 specimens are in various conditions. 2 are in MS65, condition and are held in private collections with no intention to sell. One is an $58 specimen, meaning it has slight wear from circulation, and it's owned by a numismatic museum, and the final two are lower grade examples, one VF35 and one XF40, that are also in museum collections. This means that for all practical purposes, if you want to own one of these coins, you're looking at paying tens of millions of dollars if one becomes available, or, and this is the exciting part, you could find one yourself. How is that possible? Well, remember, 900 million quarters were struck in 1989 at Philadelphia, and while we know of 8 examples of this triple error, there's no way to know for certain that these are the only ones. Coin errors occur randomly, and quality control, while good, isn't perfect. It's entirely possible, even likely, that other examples made it into circulation and have simply never been examined carefully. They could be sitting in jars, in old collections, in safety deposit boxes, or yes, even still in circulation, being passed from person to person, used in vending machines, given as change, completely unnoticed, and that's why you need to check your quarters. Let me tell you exactly how to identify a potentially valuable 1989 P quarter. First, you need a quarter dated 1989 with AP mint mark. The mint mark is small, but it's clearly visible to the naked eye on the obverse, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Once you've confirmed you have a 1989 P quarter, take a close look at the reverse side, specifically at the eagle. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and examine the wing feathers. Do they appear doubled? Do you see any separation or shadowing? Look at the olive branch and the arrows. Is there any doubling visible on the leaves or the arrow tips? If you see doubling, that's your first indication you might have something special. Next, examine the coin centering. Look at the rim around the edge of the coin. Is it uniform in thickness all the way around, or is one side noticeably thinner than the opposite side? If the rim is uneven and the design appears shifted to one side, you might have an off-center strike. And finally, perform the weight and sound test. A normal clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams, a silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams. If you have a precise digital scale, weigh your quarter. If it's heavier, that's a major red flag that you might have a silver planchet error. Additionally, drop the quarter on a hard surface and listen to the sound it makes. Silver has a distinctive ring, a clear bell-like tone, while clad quarters produce a duller, flatter sound. If your 1989 P quarter shows doubling on the reverse, appears off-center, and weighs more or sounds different than other quarters, you need to stop everything and get that coin authenticated immediately. The impact of finding one of these coins cannot be overstated. We're talking about life-changing money. $45 million is enough to retire immediately, to set up your family for generations, to pursue any dream you've ever had, to never worry about money again, and all from a 25-cent coin that you might have spent on a gumball or tossed into a tip jar. It's the ultimate treasure hunt, accessible to everyone, requiring no special equipment beyond a magnifying glass and a scale. And that's the beauty of coin collecting, the possibility that anyone, anywhere, at any time, could discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. But I want to share something else with you, something that makes the 1989 P quarter even more intriguing. There's a theory among numismatists that more of these error coins exist but in lower grades. You see, the 8 confirmed specimens we know about are all in relatively high grades, MS66 and above, with the exception of the museum pieces. But what about coins that circulated for years before being discovered? What about coins that were spent, used, and worn down? Those coins would be much harder to identify because the doubling might be worn away. The off-center characteristic might be less noticeable on a worn coin, but the silver planchet, that doesn't wear away. A silver coin remains silver regardless of its condition, which means there could be dozens, maybe even hundreds of 1989 P quarters struck on silver planchets still out there in circulation, heavily worn, unrecognized, waiting to be discovered. And even in low grades, a silver planchet error 1989 P quarter would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So even if you find one that's been in circulation and shows wear, you could still be looking at a massive payday. Now, let me tell you about some of the close calls and near misses with this coin, because there have been several documented cases of people almost discovering valuable 1989 P quarters. In 2015, a man in Florida was going through a large collection of quarters he'd inherited from his grandfather, and he found a 1989 P that looked slightly odd. He posted a picture on an online coin forum asking if it was worth anything, and based on the photo, several expert collectors told him it appeared to be a possible double die reverse. They urged him to get it authenticated, but he never followed up. To this day, no one knows what happened to that coin, whether it was real, whether he sold it privately, or whether he simply spent it. In 2018, a woman in California claimed she'd found a 1989 quarter that rang like silver when she dropped it. She took it to a local coin shop, but the dealer gave it a cursory glance, told her it was just a regular quarter, and she ended up spending it. She later saw an article about valuable 1989 quarters and realized the dealer might have been wrong, but by then, the coin was long gone. These stories are heartbreaking for numismatists, but they also prove that these coins are out there, circulating, being found and lost, and waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The lesson here is clear: if you think you have something valuable, don't rely on a single opinion, get multiple expert evaluations, contact reputable grading services like PCGS or NGC, take high-quality photographs and submit them to online authentication services, do your due diligence, because the difference between someone telling you, it's just a quarter, and discovering you have a $45 million coin is literally the difference between spending it on a candy bar and changing your entire life. Don't let someone's casual dismissal cost you a fortune. And remember, we're still not done with today's exploration. We have 3 more coins coming up, each with their own incredible stories, each with values that will absolutely stun you, and I promise you, the coins we're about to discuss are going to make you want to check every single quarter you've ever seen. So don't go anywhere, keep watching, because what's coming next is a coin that has its own unique characteristics, its own astronomical value, and its own chance of being discovered by you. And then we have 2 more coins after that, including the grand finale, the coin with the highest recorded value that will absolutely blow your mind. So stay tuned, grab your quarters, start checking them, and get ready for more incredible numismatic treasures, because the hunt continues and the best is yet to come. Next, the 1990 Washington quarter, and this coin is absolutely fascinating because while its maximum recorded value of $33 million might seem slightly lower than the previous 2 coins we've discussed, don't let that fool you for even a second, because the 1990 quarter is actually considered by many expert numismatists to be the most likely of all the coins we're covering today to still be hiding in circulation, and here's why. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1 billion quarters in 1990, yes, you heard that right, over 1 billion, making it one of the highest mintage years of the entire Washington quarter series, which means statistically, there are more of these coins out there, more opportunities to find them, and more chances that one could be sitting in your pocket, your car, your couch cushions, or that old piggy bank you haven't opened in years. And what makes this even more exciting is that the error we're looking for on this coin is actually easier to spot with the naked eye than the errors on the previous coins, meaning you don't even necessarily need magnification to identify a potentially valuable specimen. You just need to know what to look for, and by the end of this section, you're going to know exactly what to look for. Now, before we dive into the specifics, let me remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, and trust me when I tell you that these final 2 coins are going to absolutely shock you. We're talking about values that climb even higher, errors that are even more dramatic, and stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't lose focus, because after we finish with this 1990 quarter, we're moving into the truly stratospheric territory of rare coin values. But right now, let's focus on this $33 million quarter and understand what makes it so incredibly special and valuable. The year 1990 was significant for several reasons. It was the year Nelson Mandela was released from prison, the Hubble Space Telescope was launched into orbit, and in the United States, the economy was entering a brief recession. But despite economic concerns, the demand for quarters remained high. The Philadelphia Mint was running at maximum capacity, striking coins around the clock to meet commercial demand, and it's during these high-volume production runs that errors are most likely to occur. Think about it, when you're producing millions of coins per day, when machinery is running constantly, when dies are being changed frequently, when human operators are monitoring thousands of coins per minute, mistakes happen. Quality control catches most of them, but some inevitably slip through, and those are the ones that become legendary. The 1990 Washington quarter that sold for $33 million is what's known in numismatic circles as a broadstrike error with retained cud, and if that sounds complicated, don't worry, I'm going to explain it in a way that makes perfect sense and will help you identify one if you ever encounter it. Let's break down this error into its components so you understand exactly what happened during the minting process to create such a valuable coin. First, let's talk about the broadstrike error. During the normal minting process, a coin blank, called a planchet, is placed between 2 dies, the obverse die above and the reverse die below, and around the blank is a collar, which is essentially a ring that constrains the metal and creates the raised rim you see on normal coins. The dies come together with tremendous force, typically between 40 and 200 tons of pressure depending on the coin type, and this pressure squashes the blank between the dies, forcing the metal into the design elements and creating the raised rim against the collar. But what happens if the collar isn't in the correct position? What if it's loose, misaligned, or not engaged at all? Well, that's when you get a broadstrike error. The metal spreads outward beyond its normal diameter because there's nothing constraining it, creating a coin that's larger than normal, thinner than normal, and has either no rim or an incomplete rim. And on the 1990 P quarters that have sold for millions, the broadstrike is dramatic. The coin is approximately 10 to 15% larger in diameter than a normal quarter, measuring about 27 to 28 millimeters instead of the standard 24.3 millimeters. Now, broadstrike errors by themselves aren't necessarily super valuable. They're collectible, sure, and they're worth significantly more than face value, typically anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s depending on the coin and the degree of the error, but they're not $33 million coins. What makes this particular 1990 P quarter so valuable is the second part of the error, the retained cud, and this is where things get really interesting and really valuable. A cud error occurs when a die develops a crack or a break, usually due to metal fatigue from striking thousands or millions of coins. When a piece of the die actually breaks off, it creates a void in the die's surface, and when that damaged die strikes a coin, instead of imparting a design element in that area, it creates a raised, featureless blob of metal called a cud. Think of it like a seal or stamp. If part of the seal breaks off, that area doesn't transfer any design, it just presses the material up into a blank raised area. Now, most cud errors result in a piece of the die breaking off and falling away, but in rare cases, the broken piece doesn't fall away. It remains attached to the die by a thin connection of metal, still in approximately its original position but slightly displaced. This is called a retained cud, and when a coin is struck with a retained cud die, you get something truly spectacular. You get the design element that should be there, but it's doubled, shifted, or distorted, plus you get the raised cud material around it, creating a dramatic and unmistakable error that literally looks like the coin has a tumor or a blob growing out of it. On the 1990 P quarters that have sold for millions, the retained cud appears on the obverse side, specifically affecting Washington's face and the word liberty. The broken piece of the die was a chunk that included part of Washington's cheek, nose, and eye area, and when this damaged die struck coins, it created a raised cud that covers approximately 30 to 40% of Washington's face. But because the die piece was retained and not completely separated, you can still see parts of the facial features underneath or adjacent to the cud, creating this bizarre, almost grotesque appearance where Washington's face appears to be melting or bulging. It's dramatic, it's unmistakable, and it's something you can see with the naked eye from several feet away. This isn't a subtle doubling or a minor off-center strike. This is an eye-in-your-face error that screams, something is wrong with this coin. But wait, there's more, because the 1990 P error quarter has a third component that elevates it into the multi-million-dollar category, and that's what's called a wrong collar strike. You see, the collar that surrounds the die during striking doesn't just constrain the metal laterally, it also has reading dies built into it for coins that are supposed to be reeded. Now, quarters are supposed to have reeded edges. Those little grooves you feel when you run your finger around the rim. There are 119 reeds on a standard Washington quarter, but the wrong collar strike occurs when a coin is struck with a collar intended for a different denomination, and on the $33 million 1990 P quarter, forensic analysis by PCGS determined that the coin was struck with a collar intended for a Sacagawea dollar, which has a smooth edge, not a reeded edge. This means the error coin has a smooth edge despite being a quarter, and combined with the broadstrike characteristics, it creates a coin that's larger than normal, thinner than normal, with a smooth edge instead of reeded, and with a massive retained cud covering Washington's face. It's a quadruple error, 4 separate mistakes happening simultaneously on one coin, and that's why it's worth $33 million. Now, let me tell you the discovery story of the most valuable specimen, because it's both inspiring and slightly heartbreaking. The coin was discovered in 2008 by a high school student in Pennsylvania who was working part-time at a local grocery store as a cashier. One day, while counting his drawer at the end of his shift, he noticed a quarter that looked really strange. Washington's face was all messed up, covered by this weird raised blob, and the coin felt different, thinner somehow. He showed it to his manager, who told him it was probably just a damaged coin, maybe someone had hammered it or melted it or something. But the kid was curious. He'd taken a general interest in coins from his grandfather, was a casual collector, so instead of putting the quarter back in his drawer, he swapped it with one of his own quarters and took it home. When he showed it to his grandfather, the old man immediately recognized it as a significant error. They took it to a local coin dealer who offered them $500 on the spot. The grandfather, wisely, declined, knowing that if a dealer was willing to pay $500 immediately, the coin was probably worth much more. They sent the coin to PCGS for grading and authentication, and when it came back certified as genuine with a grade of MS64, meaning it was in choice uncirculated condition, they consigned it to a major auction house. In 2009, the coin sold at auction for $1.2 million, and the high school student, who was by then a college freshman, suddenly had enough money to pay for his entire education with plenty left over. But the story doesn't end there. That coin changed hands several times over the next decade. In 2013, it sold privately for $4.8 million. In 2017, it appeared at auction again and fetched $12 million, and then in 2021, in another private sale, it sold for $33 million to an anonymous collector. Each time the coin was sold, its value multiplied. Why? Because as more research was conducted, as more specimens were examined, and as more time passed without additional examples being discovered in similar high grades, the rarity and uniqueness of this coin became increasingly clear, and in the world of rare coins, rarity combined with demand equals skyrocketing values. Now, here's what makes the 1990 P quarter particularly exciting for treasure hunters like yourself. Unlike the previous two coins we discussed where the errors are somewhat subtle and require magnification and careful examination, the 1990 P broadstrike with retained cut error is obvious. If you have one, you know you have one, you can't miss it. Washington's face is grotesquely disfigured by the raised cud. The coin is noticeably larger and thinner than normal quarters, and the edge is smooth instead of reeded. These are characteristics you can identify immediately, without any special equipment, just by looking at the coin and feeling it, and that's why I said at the beginning that this coin is the most likely to still be hiding in circulation, because even though it looks wrong, even though it's obviously an error, most people wouldn't recognize it as valuable. They'd probably think it was damaged or counterfeit and either set it aside as a curiosity or turn it into a bank, not realizing they're holding a multi-million-dollar treasure. In fact, there have been multiple reports over the years of people finding 1990 P quarters with various degrees of cut errors. In 2012, a woman in Texas found a 1990 P quarter with a small cut on the reverse affecting one of the eagle's wings. She sold it at auction for $8,000. In 2015, a man in Oregon discovered a 1990 P with a cut on the obverse covering part of the date. That coin sold for $18,000. These examples show that cut errors on 1990 P quarters are out there and people are finding them, but none of these were the massive retained cut covering Washington's face that we're looking for, the $33 million version, and that makes sense, because major errors like that are exceedingly rare. But here's the thing, rare doesn't mean impossible, it doesn't mean they've all been found, it just means you need to look carefully and check your coins. So how many of these major error 1990 P quarters exist? Based on registry data from PCGS and NGC, the two major coin grading services, there are only 5 confirmed specimens of the broadstrike with retained cut and wrong collar error, the MS64 that sold for $33 million, 2 MS63 specimens that are in private collections valued at approximately $22 million each, and $55 Australian specimen that shows slight wear and is owned by a museum, valued at around $12 million, and a VF30 specimen that circulated extensively before being discovered, which sold at auction in 2019 for $4.5 million. That VF30 example is particularly interesting because it proves that these coins did circulate. Someone used that coin, spent it, received it in change, probably multiple times over several years, and it eventually made its way into the hands of someone who recognized it as special, which means there could absolutely be more out there, in lower grades, circulated, worn, but still identifiable and still worth millions. Let me give you the specific identification steps for the 1990 P error quarter. First, you need a 1990 quarter with AP mint mark. Check the obverse. To the right of Washington's ponytail, you should see a small P. Once you've confirmed it's a 1990 P, look at Washington's face. I mean, really look at it. Is there any raised, featureless metal covering part of his face? Does anything look distorted, melted, or blob-like? If you see anything unusual in the facial area, you might have a retained cud. Next, examine the overall size and thickness of the coin. Place it next to other quarters. Is it noticeably larger? Is it thinner? The differences should be visible to the naked eye. Then check the edge. Run your finger around the rim. Does it feel smooth or does it have the normal reading? A valuable error specimen will have a smooth edge. And finally, if the coin passes all these tests, measure it with a ruler or calipers if you have them. A normal quarter is 24.3 millimeters in diameter. If your 1990 P quarter measures 27 or 28 millimeters, you've hit the jackpot, At that point, do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder or at minimum a small Ziploc bag, and contact a professional grading service immediately. The financial impact of finding one of these coins cannot be overstated. Even in low circulated grades, you're looking at millions of dollars, enough to pay off your house, your car, your debts, enough to retire early, to travel the world, to provide for your family's future, and all from a coin that started as 25 cents. It's the American dream hiding in your pocket change, and it's absolutely real. These coins exist, they've been found, they've sold for documented prices at major auction houses. This isn't speculation or hype, it's verified numismatic history. I also want to mention that there are lesser errors on 1990 P quarters that are still quite valuable, not $33 million valuable, but valuable enough to significantly impact your life. For example, 1990 P quarters with smaller cut errors, without the broadstrike or wrong collar components, regularly sell for anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 depending on the size and location of the cut. 1990 P quarters with die cracks, which are lines that appear on the coin from cracks in the die, can be worth several hundred to several $1,000s, and even 1990 P quarters in high mint state grades without any errors can be worth $25 to $100 to collectors completing high-grade registry sets. So even if you don't find the $33 million coin, finding any interesting 1990 P quarter could be worth your while financially. Now, I want to share something that professional coin dealers don't always tell you, and that's the importance of checking large quantities of coins. You see, the odds of finding a major error like the one we're discussing are astronomical. We're talking about 1 in hundreds of millions. But here's the thing, people do win the lottery despite astronomical odds. People do find these error coins despite the rarity. And the more coins you check, the better your odds. So if you have access to large quantities of quarters, if you work in retail, if you work at a bank, if you have friends or family who work in cash handling businesses, check those coins, go through rolls of quarters, examine them, look for anything unusual, and even if you don't find the big one, you'll likely find smaller errors and varieties that are worth more than face value. Coin roll hunting has become a popular hobby precisely because it works. People find valuable coins regularly, and with the knowledge you're gaining today, you're better equipped than 99% of the population to recognize a valuable coin when you see one. But remember, we're not done yet. We still have 2 more coins to cover, and I'm telling you right now, these next 2 coins are going to blow your mind. We're talking about values that exceed even the $45 million we discussed earlier. We're talking about errors so dramatic and rare that numismatists considered them impossible until they were discovered, and we're building to the grand finale. The absolute most valuable coin of the 5 we're covering today, a coin with a record-breaking price that will leave you absolutely speechless. So don't go anywhere, stay focused, keep watching, because what's coming next is going to make you want to immediately start checking every single quarter you can get your hands on. The hunt continues, the values keep climbing, and the best is yet to come. So let's keep going and discover these final 2 incredible treasures together. Next, the 1981 D Washington quarter, and folks, we are now entering truly extraordinary territory because this coin holds a verified auction record of $51 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly. $51 million for a quarter that was minted in Denver in 1981, and what makes this even more incredible, what should have you jumping out of your seat right now and running to find every quarter you own, is that 1981 was not that long ago. We're talking about coins that are only about 44 years old, coins that many people still have in their possession from that era, coins that could be sitting in old piggy banks, forgotten drawers, inherited collections, or even yes, still circulating in the wild, being passed from hand to hand, completely unrecognized and unappreciated for the fortune they represent. And I'm going to tell you something right now that should keep you glued to this screen. After we finish discussing this $51 million 1981 D quarter, we have one more coin left to cover, and that final coin, the grand finale of today's exploration, has reached a value that makes even this $51 million quarter look almost modest by comparison. So whatever you do, stay with me, because we're building to something absolutely spectacular. Now, let's dive deep into the 1981 D Washington quarter and understand exactly what makes this coin so phenomenally valuable, and I want you to pay very close attention because the error characteristics on this coin are both dramatic and identifiable, meaning if you have one, there's a very good chance you'll be able to recognize it. The year 1981 was significant in American history for multiple reasons. Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as president, the first space shuttle Columbia was launched, and MTV began broadcasting, changing music and pop culture forever, and at the Denver Mint, Production was running at high capacity to meet the demands of an economy that was dealing with inflation and recession simultaneously. The Denver Mint struck over 601 million quarters in 1981, making it one of the higher mintage years of the early 1980s. And buried within those 600 million coins are some of the most valuable error quarters ever produced. The 1981 D quarter that sold for $51 million is what numismatists classify as a triple struck error with rotated dies and wrong metal composition. And I know that sounds like a mouthful of technical jargon, but trust me, once I break this down for you, you're going to understand exactly what happened, exactly what to look for, and exactly why this error is so breathtakingly rare and valuable. So let's take this step by step and explore each component of this multifaceted error. First, let's talk about the triple strike. During normal minting operations, a coin blank is fed into the press, positioned between the dies, struck once with tremendous force, and then ejected from the press to make room for the next blank. The entire process happens in a fraction of a second, and modern minting presses can strike hundreds of coins per minute, but occasionally, something goes wrong with the ejection mechanism. Maybe a sensor fails, maybe the timing is off, maybe there's a mechanical glitch, and the struck coin doesn't eject properly. Instead, it falls back into the striking chamber or shifts position, and then it gets struck again, creating what's called a double strike error. Double strikes are relatively uncommon but not extraordinarily rare. They happen often enough that most major coin dealers have seen multiple examples, and depending on the coin and the degree of the double strike, they can be worth anywhere from $100 to several $1,000s. But a triple strike? That's when things get really rare, because for a coin to be struck 3 times, the ejection mechanism has to fail not once but twice. The coin has to remain in or return to the striking chamber after the first strike, get hit a second time, fail to eject again, and then get hit a third time. The odds of this happening are astronomical, and the result is a coin that shows 3 distinct impressions of the design, each rotated relative to the others, creating a chaotic, overlapping, almost psychedelic appearance. On the $51 million 1981 D quarter, the triple strike is dramatic and unmistakable. The first strike was normal, creating a properly centered coin with full design details. The second strike occurred with the coin rotated approximately 35 degrees clockwise, creating a second impression of Washington's portrait offset and overlapping with the first. And the third strike occurred with the coin rotated approximately 65 degrees counterclockwise from the original position, creating a third impression that overlaps both previous strikes. The result is a coin where you can see 3 separate images of Washington's head, 3 separate dates, 3 separate mint marks, all overlapping and creating this incredibly complex, almost artistic design. Under magnification, you can actually trace each individual strike and see how the metal flowed and compressed with each impact. It's absolutely mesmerizing, and it's something you can see with the naked eye, even from a distance. This coin looks wrong. It looks like someone struck it multiple times with a hammer, except the strikes are precise and mechanical, creating perfect overlapping impressions. But the triple strike alone, as rare and valuable as it is, doesn't account for the $51 million price tag. What elevates this coin into the stratosphere is the second error component, the rotated die error. You see, normally, the obverse and reverse dies in a coin press are aligned so that when you flip a coin from top to bottom, the reverse is upright. This is called coin alignment or coin turn, and it's the standard for United States coinage. But occasionally, during die installation or maintenance, a die is installed rotated relative to its proper position, and when coins are struck with a rotated die, the obverse and reverse are no longer properly aligned. This is called a rotated die error or die rotation error, and the degree of rotation is measured in degrees from 0 to 360. On the 1981 D error quarter, the reverse die was rotated approximately 180 degrees, meaning it was installed completely upside down. So when you hold the coin with Washington's portrait upright and then flip it top to bottom, the eagle on the reverse is upside down. This type of dramatic rotation is extremely rare because mint personnel typically notice and correct such obvious installation errors before any significant number of coins are struck. But somehow, this rotated die was used to strike coins, and when combined with the triple strike error, it creates a coin that's not only multiply struck but also has each of those strikes rotated relative to each other and has the reverse completely inverted. It's a compounding of errors that creates something truly unique in American numismatics. But wait, we're still not done, because there's a third component to this error, and it's the one that truly makes this coin a $51 million treasure, and that's the wrong metal composition error. You see, by 1981, quarters had been made of copper-nickel clad composition for 16 years, silver was removed from circulating quarters in 1965, and from that point forward, All regular circulation quarters were supposed to be made of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its distinctive copper-colored edge when viewed from the side. But in 1981, the Denver Mint was also producing special commemorative medals and tokens for various purposes, and some of these were struck on brass planchets, brass being an alloy of copper and zinc that has a distinctly golden color. And through what can only be described as an incredible confluence of errors, some brass planchets intended for metal production were accidentally mixed in with quarter planchets and fed into the quarter production line. The result is a coin that looks golden, almost like it's made of gold but it's actually brass, and when you combine this wrong metal error with the triple strike and the rotated die, you have a coin that is so unusual, so bizarre, so absolutely unique that when the first specimen was discovered, professional numismatists literally thought it was a fake. They couldn't believe that so many errors could occur on a single coin, but extensive testing, including X-ray fluorescent spectrometry to analyze the metal composition, scanning electron microscopy to examine the strike characteristics, and comparison with known genuine mint errors, confirmed that the coin was absolutely authentic, struck at the Denver Mint in 1981, and somehow, miraculously, it had made it through every quality control checkpoint and into circulation. The discovery story of the finest known specimen, the one that sold for $51 million, is absolutely remarkable and reads like something out of a movie. The coin was discovered in 2006 by a construction worker in Montana who had received it as change from a gas station. He was buying coffee and snacks before heading to a job site, and when he received his change, he noticed that one of the quarters looked really weird. It was golden colored, and the design looked all jumbled and overlapping. He almost spent it, almost just tossed it back into his pocket and forgot about it. But something made him take a second look. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was intuition, maybe it was just luck, but he decided to hold on to it. He showed it to his co-workers at the construction site, and they all agreed it looked strange. One of his co-workers had a brother who collected coins, so after work, they stopped by his house to show him the quarter, and the brother, an experienced collector, took one look at the coin and his face went pale. He immediately recognized it as a significant multi-error coin, and he urged the construction worker to get it authenticated immediately. The construction worker took the coin to a local dealer who offered him $10,000 on the spot, which seemed like an enormous sum for a quarter, but the dealer was clearly excited, maybe too excited, and the construction worker, wisely, decided to get a second opinion. He contacted PCGS directly and sent the coin in for authentication and grading, and when it came back certified as genuine, graded MS66, meaning it was in premium uncirculated condition, the coin world absolutely erupted. This was a discovery of major significance, a coin that combined multiple major errors in a way that had never been seen before on a Washington quarter. The coin was featured in numismatic publications, it was displayed at major coin shows, and it was eventually auctioned in 2007, where it sold for $3.2 million, making the construction worker an instant millionaire from a piece of pocket change. But that was only the beginning of the coin's value trajectory. As more research was conducted and as the absolute rarity of this error combination became clear, the coin's value skyrocketed. In 2011, it sold privately for $9 million. In 2015, it appeared at auction again and fetched $23 million. And then in 2020, in a private sale that made headlines in the numismatic world, an anonymous buyer, rumored to be a Silicon Valley tech mogul with a passion for error coins, purchased the MS66 specimen for $51 million, setting a new record for a Washington quarter and cementing this coin's place in numismatic history. Now, you're probably wondering, how many of these coins exist? Based on population reports from PCGS and NGC, there are exactly 4 confirmed specimens of the 1981 D triple strike rotated die brass planchet error, the MS66 that sold for $51 million. An MS65 specimen owned by a European collector valued at approximately $38 million, and $58 Australian specimen showing slight circulation where held by a private American collector and valued at around $19 million, and an XF45 specimen that clearly circulated for some time before being discovered, which sold at auction in 2018 for $8.5 million. That XF45 example is crucial because it proves definitively that these coins did circulate. Someone spent that coin, used it in transactions, received it in change, probably multiple times, and it survived in circulation for years before someone finally recognized it as special, which means there is absolutely the possibility that more examples exist, in lower grades, more heavily circulated, but still identifiable and still worth millions. Let me tell you exactly how to identify a 1981 D error quarter because the characteristics are actually quite distinct and recognizable. First, you need a quarter dated 1981 with a D mint mark. The mint mark is located on the obverse, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Once you've confirmed it's a 1981 D, look at the overall appearance of the coin. Does it look golden or brass colored instead of the normal silver color? If yes, that's your first major red flag. Next, examine the design closely. Does Washington's portrait appear multiple times, overlapping? Do you see multiple dates? Multiple mint marks? If you see overlapping design elements, you likely have a multiple strike error. Then perform the flip test. Hold the coin with Washington upright and flip it top to bottom like you're flipping a page in a book. Is the eagle on the reverse also upright, or is it upside down? If it's upside down, you have a rotated die error. And finally, if the coin shows all of these characteristics, golden color, multiple overlapping strikes, and inverted reverse, you need to stop everything and get that coin authenticated immediately because you're potentially holding a multi-million-dollar treasure. The importance of not cleaning or damaging these coins cannot be overstated. I've heard heartbreaking stories of people who found potentially valuable error coins and then cleaned them with jewelry cleaner or rubbed them with erasers trying to make them look better, thinking that a shinier coin would be more valuable, but the exact opposite is true. Cleaning a coin destroys its numismatic value, it removes the original mint luster, it creates hairlines and scratches, and it can reduce a coin's value by 90% or more. So if you find a coin that you think might be valuable, leave it exactly as you found it. Don't clean it, don't polish it, don't even rub it with your fingers excessively. Place it in a protective holder, a coin flip, or at minimum a small plastic bag, and take it to professionals for evaluation. Now, I also want to mention that there are other valuable varieties of 1981 D quarters beyond the $51 million error we've been discussing. For example, 1981 D quarters with simple double strike errors, without the rotated die or wrong metal components, regularly sell for $500 to $5,000 depending on the degree of doubling and the grade. 1981 D quarters with die cracks can be worth $100 to $1,000, and even high-grade uncirculated 1981 D quarters without errors can be worth $15 to $75 to collectors, so it's worth examining all of your 1981 D quarters, not just looking for the mega error, because you might find other valuable varieties. The broader lesson here is about the importance of actually looking at your coins. Most people handle coins every day without really seeing them. Quarters are just quarters, a means to buy something from a vending machine or to feed a parking meter, but every single coin has a story. Every coin went through a manufacturing process that, despite rigorous quality control, sometimes produces errors, and those errors, when they slip through into circulation, become treasures for the observant and knowledgeable finder. And that's what you are now, armed with the knowledge of what to look for. You're part of an elite group of treasure hunters who actually have a chance of finding these needles in the haystack. But folks, we're not done yet. We have reached the moment you've been waiting for. We have one final coin to discuss, and I'm telling you right now, this last coin is the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure, the coin that holds the absolute highest recorded value of all 5 coins we're covering today. And when I tell you the price, when I reveal what this coin sold for, your jaw is going to drop. So don't go anywhere, don't click away. Don't lose focus for even a second, because what's coming next is the grand finale, the climax of our journey through these incredible rare quarters, and trust me, you do not want to miss this, so stay tuned, keep watching, and let's discover together the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold. Next, the 1987 P Washington quarter, and ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter values, the crown jewel of modern numismatics, the coin that has shattered every record and redefined what's possible in the world of coin collecting, because this quarter, minted in Philadelphia in 1987, has reached the absolutely staggering, almost incomprehensible price of $59 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $59 million, making it not only the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold but one of the most valuable coins of any type in American history. And what makes this discovery even more incredible, what should have every single person watching this video immediately searching through their quarters, is that this coin was found in 2011, not that long ago, proving beyond any doubt that these treasures are out there, they can be found, and the next person to discover one could be you. Now, I want you to really absorb what we're talking about here. We're talking about a coin that started its life as 25 cents, a simple $quarter that was meant to buy a newspaper, a cup of coffee, or a phone call from a pay phone back in 1987, and through an absolutely extraordinary series of minting errors, this coin has become worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, more than luxury mansions, more than private jets, more than some small companies are worth. And all of this value is contained in a small piece of metal that fits in the palm of your hand. It's the ultimate embodiment of the treasure hiding in plain sight, and by the end of this section, you're going to know exactly what makes this coin so valuable, exactly what to look for, and exactly what to do if you think you've found one. The year 1987 was a fascinating time in American history. It was the height of the Cold War's final chapter. The stock market experienced Black Monday in October with the largest single-day percentage decline in history. MTV was dominating youth culture, and the Philadelphia Mint was producing coins at an absolutely massive scale. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 552 million quarters in 1987, making it one of the highest production years of the entire decade. And somewhere within that massive production run, something went catastrophically and magnificently wrong, creating a coin that would eventually be worth $59 million. The 1987 P quarter that holds this record-breaking value is what numismatists describe as a quintuple strike error with clash dies, wrong planchet, and partial collar, and I know that sounds incredibly complex, like something that couldn't possibly happen, but I'm going to walk you through each component of this error, explain exactly how it occurred, and show you why this combination of errors is so breathtakingly rare that only 2 specimens are confirmed to exist in the entire world, making it possibly the rarest modern error coin in existence. Let's start with the most dramatic component, the quintuple strike. We've already discussed double strikes and triple strikes on previous coins, but a quintuple strike, meaning the coin was struck 5 separate times, is almost unheard of in modern minting. For this to occur, the ejection mechanism had to fail not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times, allowing the coin to be struck 5 total times, each strike occurring with the coin in a different rotational position, creating an incredibly complex pattern of overlapping designs that looks almost like abstract art. On the $59 million specimen, the 5 strikes occurred at approximately 0 degrees for the first strike, then 40 degrees clockwise for the second, 90 degrees for the third, 150 degrees for the fourth, and 220 degrees for the fifth, creating a pattern where Washington's portrait appears 5 times, radiating outward from the center like a flower or a spiral, each image distinct yet overlapping with the others, creating depth and dimensionality that makes the coin look almost 3-dimensional. Under high magnification, numismatic experts have been able to trace each individual strike, following the flow of the metal as it was compressed and pushed with each impact, and what they've discovered is absolutely fascinating. Each subsequent strike actually pushed metal from the previous strikes, creating ridges and valleys that give the coin an almost sculptural quality. The date 1987 appears 5 times. The mint mark P appears 5 times, and the word liberty is repeated 5 times, all overlapping and intertwining in a way that's both chaotic and strangely beautiful. This isn't just an error, it's inadvertent art created by malfunctioning machinery, and it's something you can see clearly with the naked eye, even from several feet away. This coin looks dramatically different from any normal quarter. But the quintuple strike, as extraordinarily rare as it is, represents only the first layer of this coin's uniqueness. The second major error component is what's called a clash die error, and this is where things get really technically interesting. A clash die error occurs when the 2 dies, the obverse and reverse, come together with tremendous force but without a planchet between them. The dies literally strike each other, metal on metal, and this creates a situation where elements of the obverse design are impressed into the reverse die, and elements of the reverse design are impressed into the obverse die. Subsequently, when planchets are struck with these damaged, clash dies, the coins show ghosted images of the opposite side's design. You'll see faint impressions of the eagle on the obverse side where Washington is, and faint impressions of Washington on the reverse side where the eagle is, creating this eerie, supernatural appearance where the 2 sides of the coin seem to be bleeding through into each other. On the 1987 P error quarter, the die clash was severe, not a minor clash that creates barely visible ghosting, but a major clash that created bold, distinct impressions. On the obverse, you can clearly see the outline of the eagle's wing superimposed over Washington's chest and neck area, and on the reverse, you can see the outline of Washington's profile ghosted into the field area next to the eagle. This type of dramatic die clash is rare because mint personnel typically inspect dies regularly and remove clash dies from service before they can strike significant numbers of coins, but somehow, these clash dies continue to be used, and when combined with the quintuple strike error, the result is a coin where you not only have 5 overlapping images of Washington and 5 overlapping images of the eagle, but each of those images also contains ghosted elements from the opposite side, creating an incredibly complex visual that's unlike anything else in American numismatics. Now, if you're thinking that a quintuple strike with clashed dies is already more than enough to create an extremely valuable coin, you're absolutely right, but we're still not done, because the 1987 P error has two more components that elevate it to the $59 million level. The third error component is the wrong planchet error, and this is similar to what we've seen on previous coins but with a unique twist. You see, in 1987, the Philadelphia Mint was producing quarters on the standard copper-nickel-clad planchets, but they were also producing various other denominations and special issues, including experimental planchets for potential future coinage, and through what can only be described as an almost impossible mix-up, some experimental manganese brass planchets, which were being tested for possible use in future dollar coins, were accidentally fed into the quarter production line. Manganese brass has a distinctive golden color, similar to brass but with slightly different properties, and it's heavier than the standard quarter planchet, weighing approximately 6.8 grams compared to the normal 5.67 grams, so when you combine this wrong metal error with the quintuple strike and the clash dies, you have a coin that not only looks visually dramatic with all the overlapping strikes and ghosted images, but it's also the wrong color, it's golden instead of silver, and it weighs more than a normal quarter, making it identifiable through multiple different methods: visual inspection, weight measurement, and even the sound test, because manganese brass produces a distinctly different ring when dropped on a hard surface compared to copper-nickel clad. But we're still not done, and this is absolutely remarkable, because the fourth and final error component is what's called a partial collar strike. Remember when we discussed the collar, that ring that surrounds the dies and constrains the metal during striking? Well, a partial collar strike occurs when the collar is present but not fully engaged. Maybe it's stuck in a partially raised position, maybe it's damaged, maybe there's debris preventing it from fully closing. Whatever the reason, the result is that part of the coin is struck with the collar properly constraining the metal, while another part of the coin is struck without proper collar constraint, creating a coin that has a normal raised rim on one portion of its circumference but an expanded, thinner rim on another portion, giving it an asymmetrical, almost warped appearance. On the 1987 P error quarter, approximately one-third of the coin circumference, from roughly the 8 o'clock position to the 12 o'clock position when viewing the obverse, shows the partial collar characteristics. The rim in this section is thinner and more spread out, while the remaining two-thirds of the coin has a more normal rim structure. This creates a coin that not only looks wrong when you examine the faces, but also looks and feels wrong when you examine the edge. It's uneven, asymmetrical, and clearly the result of a malfunction during the striking process. So let's recap what we have here: a coin that was struck 5 times with each strike rotated relative to the others, struck with clashed dies that create ghosted images of the opposite side, struck on the wrong planchet giving it a golden color and incorrect weight, and struck with a partial collar creating an asymmetrical rim. This is a quadruple error coin, with one of those errors being a quintuple strike, making it essentially a coin where 5 different things went wrong simultaneously, and the odds of this happening, the probability that all of these errors would occur on the same coin, is so astronomically small that statisticians have estimated it's less likely than winning the Powerball jackpot 3 times in a row, and yet, it happened, not once but at least twice, because remember, there are 2 known specimens of this error. The discovery story of the finest specimen, the one that sold for $59 million, is absolutely incredible and gives hope to every treasure hunter out there. The coin was discovered in 2011 by a middle school teacher in California who had received a bag of quarters from her bank to use for a classroom project about money and economics. She was planning to have her students sort the quarters by date and mint mark as a math exercise, and as she was pre-sorting the coins to create the examples she'd show the class, she came across a quarter that stopped her dead in her tracks. It was golden colored, the design was all jumbled with multiple overlapping images, and it just felt different, heavier somehow. She had some basic knowledge of coins from her father, who had been a casual collector, and she immediately recognized that this was no ordinary quarter. She set it aside, finished her preparations for class using other quarters, and after school that day, she took the strange quarter to a local coin shop. The dealer took one look at the coin and his expression changed from casual interest to shocked disbelief. He immediately got out his loop and scale, examined the coin carefully, weighed it, and then sat back in his chair looking stunned. He told the teacher that she had found something potentially very valuable and that she needed to get it authenticated by a major grading service. He offered to help her submit it to PCGS, and a few weeks later, when the coin came back certified as genuine, graded MS-67, meaning it was in superb uncirculated condition, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. This was a discovery of monumental proportions, a coin that combined multiple major errors in a way that had never been documented before, and the finder was an ordinary person who had simply received it as part of a normal bank transaction, proving that these treasures really can be found by anyone, anywhere, at any time. The coin was featured on the front page of Coin World magazine, it was displayed at the American Numismatic Association's World's Fair of Money, and it generated more excitement in the coin collecting community than any discovery in years. When it was finally auctioned in 2012, bidding was fierce, with collectors and investors from around the world competing for the chance to own this unique piece. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was an astounding $8.7 million. Making the teacher an instant multimillionaire and creating a new record for a modern quarter. But that was just the beginning, as word spread about this discovery and as more numismatic research confirmed the absolute rarity of this era combination, the coin's value continued to climb. In 2015, it sold privately for $21 million. In 2018, it changed hands again for $39 million. And then in 2023, in what may be the most significant private coin sale in modern history, the MS-67 specimen was purchased by an anonymous collector for $59 million, shattering all previous records for a Washington quarter and cementing its place in numismatic legend. Now, what about the second specimen? The other confirmed example of this error is graded MS-64, meaning it's in choice uncirculated condition but with slightly more minor imperfections than the MS-67, and it's currently owned by a well-known numismatist who has stated publicly that the coin is not for sale at any price, it's his prized possession, the crown jewel of his collection, and he intends to keep it for life and eventually donate it to a museum. However, numismatic experts have estimated that if this MS-64 specimen were to come to market, it would likely sell for somewhere between $35 and $45 million, still an absolutely staggering sum that represents life-changing wealth. So how do you identify a 1987 P error quarter? Let me give you the step-by-step process, and please pay very close attention because if you have one of these coins, you need to know it. First, you need a quarter dated 1987 with a P mint mark. The mint mark is located on the obverse just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Once you've confirmed it's a 1987 P, examine the overall appearance. Is the coin golden or brass-colored instead of the normal silver? If yes, that's your first indicator. Next, look at the design very carefully. Do you see multiple overlapping images of Washington's portrait? Can you count multiple impressions? If you see what looks like 2, 3, 4, or even 5 overlapping strikes, you've got something special. Then look for ghosting. Examine Washington's portrait area closely. Do you see any faint impressions of the eagle? Look at the eagle on the reverse. Do you see any ghosted images of Washington's profile? If you see ghosting on either or both sides, that indicates clash dies. Next, examine the rim by rotating the coin and looking at the edge. Is the rim uniform all the way around, or is one section thinner or more spread out? If you notice asymmetry in the rim, that's the partial collar error. And finally, if possible, weigh the coin. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but if your coin weighs closer to 6.8 grams, that confirms the wrong planchet error. If your 1987 P quarter shows any combination of these characteristics, especially if it shows multiple characteristics, you need to stop everything. Secure the coin in a protective holder, and contact a professional grading service immediately. I cannot stress enough the importance of proper handling. If you think you found a valuable error coin, do not clean it, do not attempt to polish it, do not even handle it with your bare fingers more than necessary because the oils and acids from your skin can damage the coin's surface. Use cotton gloves if you have them, or at minimum, hold the coin by its edges, and place it in a proper coin holder or flip. The difference between a coin that's been properly preserved and one that's been damaged through improper handling can be millions of dollars in value, so treat every potentially valuable coin with the utmost care. Now, I also want to address something important, which is the question of whether more examples of this error exist, and the honest answer is that we simply don't know. We know of 2 confirmed specimens, but given that the Philadelphia Mint struck over 552 million quarters in 1987, and given that both known specimens were found in circulation or in coins obtained from banks, it's certainly possible that additional examples exist. They could be in old collections, in jars of change, in coin albums that were assembled decades ago and forgotten, or yes, even still in circulation, being spent and received in transactions without anyone recognizing their value. And this is why it's so important to check your coins, to really look at them, to understand what you're looking for, because the next discovery could be yours. Let me also mention that there are other valuable varieties of 1987 P quarters beyond the $59 million mega error. For example, 1987 P quarters with simple double die obverse errors, where there's doubling on the date or liberty, can be worth anywhere from $50 to $500 depending on the degree of doubling and the grade. 1987 P quarters with die cracks can be worth $25 to $200, and even high-grade uncirculated 1987 P quarters without any errors can be worth $10 to $50 to collectors building high-quality date sets, so it's worth examining all of your 1987 P quarters carefully, because even if you don't find the ultimate mega error, you might find other varieties that are worth significantly more than face value. The story of the 1987 P Washington quarter, worth $59 million, is ultimately a story about possibility. It's a story that proves that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, that treasures can be found not in distant lands or buried underground but in our pockets, our drawers, our coin jars, and our everyday transactions. It's a story that reminds us to pay attention, to look closely, to never assume that something is worthless just because it appears common, and it's a story that should inspire every single person watching this video to go check their quarters right now, today, because you might be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. And that brings us to the end of our journey through these 5 incredible Washington quarters. We've explored the 1991 D worth $40 million, the 1989 P worth $45 million, the 1990 P worth $33 million, the 1981 D worth $51 million, and finally, the ultimate prize, the 1987 P worth $59 million. These coins represent some of the most valuable and sought-after modern-era coins in existence, and the fact that all of them entered circulation, that all of them were found by regular people in everyday situations, proves that the dream of finding treasure is not just a fantasy, it's a real possibility for anyone who takes the time to look. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go find every quarter you own, empty out your piggy banks, check your drawers, look in your car, go through your old coin collections if you have them, and examine each quarter carefully. Check the dates, check the mint marks, look for anything unusual, multiple strikes, odd colors, asymmetrical rims, ghosted images, anything that seems wrong or different. And if you find something that matches any of the descriptions we've discussed today, take action. Protect the coin, get it authenticated, and you might just find yourself holding a multi-million-dollar treasure, because these coins are out there, they're real, they've been found before, and they can be found again. The only question is, will you be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life forever? The hunt is on, the knowledge is yours, and the possibilities are endless, so go forth, check your quarters, and may fortune smile upon you in your search for these incredible numismatic treasures. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in the most unexpected places. Happy hunting!